I decided to record this without a teleprompter. I practiced what I was going to say for some time, but I could add a few things and subtract a few things while I'm talking, so just bear with me. It was one of those days 20 years ago that we all remember where we were when it happened. For our grandparents and great-grandparents is when we learned that Pearl Harbor was being attacked. For our parents and grandparents is when JFK was shot, when the Berlin Wall came down, when Reagan was shot maybe, when the Challenger exploded. But for young adults like me, young adults in the start of the 21st century anyway, that we will always remember where we were that morning on September 11th, 2001. I was living with my parents in Port St. Lucie. We had moved up from Fort Lauderdale when my father retired from his job in the airline. I was in my parents' room helping my mom, as I usually do, with her computer. It was always kind of slow. She didn't mind so much. I mean, she could turn it on, do some stuff for 5 minutes, and then be back and everything would be ready to go. She was having a particular issue, that much I don't know too much, when the phone rang. It was early morning, so the phone ringing was a little unusual at the time. Apparently it was my sister, and she told Mom to turn on the TV. I was still in the room, I was still in the bedroom with the computer when Mom called me in to the living room, and that's when I saw it. A commercial airliner had plowed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center Twin Towers. Black smoke was coming out of basically was around the 80th to 90th floors of the building. And like many other people, I was in shock, and I thought, what happened? Was there an accident? Was this an accident? Was something happened after takeoff from JFK or LaGuardia and this happened? We all thought that until the second plane struck the South Tower, closer to 2/3 the way up. And then I thought, like many other people thought, this was no accident. Somebody deliberately did this. Then we learned about the third plane crashing just before hitting the Pentagon head-on, and a fourth plane that crash landed in Pittsburgh due to some brave people on board. I was shaken, as many people were, I'm sure. Even as a 30-year-old out there, I was unemployed, so I was pretty low down at the time, unemployed, living with my parents at 30, you know, that's a hit to the ego. And when I saw this, I went down almost as low as I could go. My mom even gave me half an Ambien so that I could just relax, stay in another room, not listen to or watch the TV to hear the horrific details. But I did see the towers falling. The towers that I could see from my childhood home in Long Beach. I could see them on a clear day just over the horizon, and they fell. Then President George W. Bush said that night that we should conduct ourselves as if this never happened. But how could we, I thought? How could we possibly continue living our lives the way they are when at any moment someone with guns could take over an airplane and crash it into a major metropolitan area, into a tall building, and kill hundreds of people? How could we do that? Part of me couldn't believe it. Part of me couldn't believe that this was really happening. I thought it was a dream. But part of me couldn't believe that the president would ask us to do that, because I didn't think it was possible. Thank goodness for Thursday. Because to me, Thursday was SmackDown night, and I was sick and tired of turning on the TV and everywhere was stuff about the terrorist attack. But I saw on the website that the WWE was going to have a live version of SmackDown, which was unheard of at the time. See, the way it usually worked was that Monday they had Raw live, and then Tuesday they would tape SmackDown, edit it, and then broadcast it on Thursday. Unfortunately, September 11th, 2001 was on a Tuesday. But apparently Mr. McMahon, who no doubt was a conservative back then, a Republican back then, and listened to President Bush's words, said, you know what, the show must go on. We're going to have a live version. Anyone wants in, come in. And I'm sure there was a lot of argument, especially among the staff and the superstars. Because, like me, I could understand perfectly if they wanted to cancel it, especially with all the danger going around. But no, he decided to let it happen. And so, 8 p.m. Eastern, I watched it on UPN. And I saw Mr. McMahon in the ring reiterating Bush's words and saying that the people of Houston, of Texas, and of the United States as a whole were not afraid. And we were all on a big patriotic high then. We wanted the people who were responsible for this to get theirs. Even I did. And he said this was the first mass gathering of people. The first of that size, 5 digits and more, since the attacks. And the attacks were only 60 hours ago. And that many people gathered in Houston, in that arena, even though there was any kind of possibility that someone could come in there, or someone could hijack another plane and plow it right in there. They weren't afraid. And the superstars performed. Although the storylines were put on the side, especially the big storyline of the WWE versus the alliance of WCW, ECW back then. The fights were still WCW versus Alliance, but that was only because heels, those were the faces and heels at the time. But they were just there to perform. They were just there, if only for 2 hours, to help us forget what happened and to unite us, to bring us out of our funk. And believe it or not, it brought me out of mine. It really did. It wasn't the only thing, but it was definitely a catalyst. A month later, I would get a retail job. Not the one I'm currently in, but at least it was something. I don't know why I listened to Vince McMahon, but not to the president, but there you go. I knew that we always had to keep 9/11 in the back of our heads and not forget it. Because if we forget it, it could happen again. But I also knew we shouldn't let it control our lives. "20 years later, and I remember that. I remember it almost like it was yesterday. Not just where I was and what I was doing when the towers are hit, but how I felt that Thursday when over 10,000 people gathered in Houston to watch a bunch of sweaty men in tights grapple with each other. And I just want to say, I doubt that the WWE even sees this, or anyone in the WWE even sees this. But I just want to say, thank you. Thank you, WWE, for helping me. I have no idea what would have happened to me if I didn't see that show, as I had been watching for over a dozen years at the time. I've been watching the WWE. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't hear those words. If I didn't hear Jillian Garcia singing the national anthem at the start. If I didn't hear the WWE superstars being so proud of who they were, of being American. And I learned, let God and the military sort out what was going on with the terrorists, and just go on with your life. So, from the bottom of my heart, 20 years later, WWE, thank you. And never forget.